There's something that's just been rolled out that makes your money make more money. And I'm not talking about investing. I'm talking about ordinary expenses you were going to make anyway that now give you more money back. Now, that's exactly what this is about. It's about money back. Now, when it comes to doing anything, whatever business you may have, or especially real estate, or even something that includes any form of marketing, or even ordinary expenses for yourself, you're going to have significant expenses. Just think for a second. If you're making $100,000 every year, how much of that $100,000 is left by the end of that year? Most likely, it's not going to be more than 10 grand. The reason is because obviously all your expenses go towards either necessary things or living life because you make the money you make so that you can spend it. So, with where we're at now, there are 2% cashback cards. Capital One gives those. There's even 4x, 5x point cards on things like flights or hotels. But something just came out which kind of changes the game. And it's not just a new bank or a bank that already exists releasing some new card, it's a combination of both. And typically, until now, me as a real estate investor and someone who runs Google marketing ads, Facebook marketing ads, in order to get clients of different types, I have used advertising, I have ran expenses for my house flips, and basically that is the bulk of where my money goes. That comes in and goes out. It's the flywheel, you could say. Now, I used to preach to get Amex for 4x points on advertising, and then those points turn into 10, 20% cash back if you use it on the right deals for flights. My advice there stands. Use Amex, especially Amex Gold, for advertising, and if you travel frequently, use Amex Platinum. But now I'm thinking to reconsider that maybe even the Amex Gold business or even the Amex Platinum are no longer the optimal card. And it's kind of crazy to say because Amex has been holding the first place for a long time. Now, what could possibly be better that just hit the market? You may have heard of it, you may have not, but I'm talking about Robinhood opening a card or a banking section. And I'm not talking about the Platinum, although their Platinum gives 5 to 10% back, I think, on flights and hotels. I'm talking about Robinhood Gold, and I'm about to show you exactly why this gets insane. So, before today, all we used to have for the best cash back across the market, especially in terms of like unlimited cash back, we're not talking about rookie numbers where you're spending 500 or $1,000 a month. Wherein, okay, Amex Blue, that'll give you like what, 6% back, crazy stuff like that. No, we're talking about big businesses that have no cap. And if you, no cap, right? If you actually spend more than $1,000 a month on anything, including yourself, then those cards are going to be very limited use and they're very specific. It's hard to, you know, collectively track your spending every single year on exactly how much you've spent on groceries and then always use your blue card for groceries until it maxes out and then you go to a new card. It's just too much work. If you want to simplify it and have unlimited caps so that you also have that room for growth, this is what we do now. Before now, we used to get 2% cash back across the board. That's the best rate you could have found. And we got that from the Capital One Spark Cash. Yeah, 2% Smart Cash. This card exists both for personal and for business. You could either get a business card or a personal card, and the credit scores are either the same or separate depending on the entity you have. Now, here's the interesting part. This is no limit. Amex just recently came out with a graphite, which competes with Capital One's 2% back, and the graphite is also 2% back. And until now, there was an alternative, or one other choice that also gave 2% back, and that was the Amex Blue, the Blue Preferred, or just the Blue Cash Preferred. And it has a small annual fee, which is about $95, I believe. And really, it's nothing if you're, spending at least 100 grand, because that's $2,000 back. And so there was a limit on this, which I believe was 50,000 a year. I would have to double check. It's either 50. Yeah, I think it's 50. And obviously on 50,000, you're only going to make back $1,000 at the end of the year. So It's all right. Given that Amex is the most consumer friendly, you would typically put your money into Amex first and then go to Capital One because obviously Capital One, your funds are less, I wouldn't say they're less safe. In my opinion, they are less safe. I'm not making any statements or financial suggestions here. This is not financial advice. But after you max out Blue Cash, you would go to Capital One and you'd get the Spark Cash, and that's unlimited. But obviously, there's reasons as to why you start with Capital One. Now, here with the Graphite, it's now unlimited. So if you can get a Graphite, you can skip Capital One altogether. That's my advice. That's not financial advice. That's my opinion advice. Now, here is why everything changed without me having to tangent too long. There's now the Robinhood, I'll just put RH, Gold. Now, what's so interesting about Robinhood Gold? Well, it's really simple. It's 3% cash back, unlimited on everything. Now, here is the caveat. Pay attention to this part. There is no business credit card version of the Robinhood Gold. There's only the personal credit card for Robinhood Gold. Now, you would think, damn, well, now I can't put my expenses on my card. I can't put my business expenses on it. I think I just have to stick with Cap One or Amex. That's what I thought at first too, but I did a little bit of digging. First, before I show you exactly why this is still a game changer, even though it's not a business card, I want to show you some examples as to how game changer using the right card could really be. Because you might be thinking, okay, well, this is turning a little, foolish or silly. Like you're focusing over 1%. I'll show you something. So let's say either you are a freelancer or you run your own kind of small business, whatever it may be, even general expenses. Let's go back to that example where we're spending 100 grand a month, basically 90 grand, sorry, not a month, per year. 90 grand a year, we make 100 grand. So let's see here. Our expenses are going to be 90 grand. Now, this is a consumer example. I'm going to show you what a business will do and how it gets even crazier. 90 grand, if you get 3% back on that, that is, I believe, 27. Am I tripping? Yeah, it's $2,700 you're getting back. All right. So that's pretty major compared to the actual 1,800 you'd be getting otherwise. So $900 extra just from using the Robinhood Gold. Now, there's taxes, all that kind of stuff. We are ignoring taxes for now, but when we get to business section, that's when we're going to talk about taxes because there's a way in which you can really get the most cash back. Because if you're paying taxes, let's be real. You're making, let's say, 150, and then after tax, okay, that's a little, no one cares. 150 after taxes, 100. We're not trying to get too nitty gritty here. It's just an example. So if you're getting 3% back on your 100, okay, that's 3K. But if instead your expenses were tax deductible, then you could theoretically spend the 3%. You would get 3% from the 150. And so what does that turn out to be? That is now 4.5K. So whereas beforehand, if you were doing, ordinary credit cards, not looking into it too deep, and you were nonchalant about it, you just used Amex Blue Cash or the Capital and Spark Cash, well, on 100K, you're making 2K back. That's 2 grand you can spend. I mean, if you think about it, with a salary of 100, 2% raise, that's going to get you at least something. 2 grand to spend on whatever you want, given the fact that you were going to spend your 100 grand anyway. That's pretty good. 2 grand, sure. But you could literally take it to 4,500. That's more than double if you had a way to actually get the 3% on your pre-tax income. And that's how you get massive money. Because not only are you getting 3%, but you're getting 3% on your income, which is pre-tax. So it's a 3% on 30% increased income, if that makes any sense and if you're following. So let me explain, right? These are ordinary expenses if you were a consumer. This is how you go from $2,000 cash back every year to almost $5,000. Now that's major. You could really do a lot with that. Now, let's show exactly how this gets even better. If you remember here, of course, there's the Graphite, which is a business exclusive card, I think. 2% back. How do we actually use this on something pre-tax income, whatever it may be, without having to pay that actual tax to then, which effectively reduces our cashback. Because if you think about it, right, we get taxed at 30%, 33%, and then what's a third of 3? It's 1%. So if we have a business and we're giving away 1%, because there's no 3% cashback card for a business, we would say, oh, we have to use 2%. It's effectively the same. It's just 2% cashback for yourself. And although there might be limited versions of 3% cashback or more cards, like the Amex personal Blue Cash, that one gives 6% on like up to 5,000 or something like that. Grocery expenses. Again, the difference here is that with gold, it is basically the same because you are paying tax and then you're spending, right? Now, here's the difference. You actually can utilize this for your business expenses, even though it is not a personal card. Again, disclaimer, this is what I believe. You would have to double check the information and consult with your CPA before taking on plans like this. This is just a concept. Now, that's not to say that it's not actually doable in real life. Just double check, right? Maybe a year from now, this gets changed and you can't actually use a personal card for business expenses. But how do you use a personal card for business expenses so that you do not actually pay tax anyway on your tax deductible expenses, your business expenses, in other words, and still get that 3% back? Well, this is pretty simple. All you have to do is make reimbursements between your LLC or your business entity, which has the business bank accounts. You have to reimburse yourself, your card that you expend on. And then when you reimburse yourself and you spend on that personal credit card of yours, you're going to be set. That's pretty much how it is. As long as you have your CPA know about this and actually make the necessary changes to coordinate, it's totally legal to do this. Maybe it's not within the terms of the actual cardholder or the bank, but really it's not going to be something that's enforced all that much. It's not that serious, in other words, allegedly. Now, I've done stuff like this all the time. I have not gone against the terms, disclaimers, but I've been totally fine. So this is a great way to get extra money. Now, let's actually dive into a business example. This is going to be the crazy part. So what I want to show you guys specifically is how this works in real estate flipping. Okay? When it comes to real estate flipping, there are obviously ordinary expenses, things like inspections, title expenses, EMDs, earnest money deposits. You can make them by credit card sometimes. And what else is there really? There's really not much in terms of buying or regular expenses for a home. An inspection, let's say it runs you $500. People love asking for more these days. That's just how it is. Title, it is about 1 to 2% of the home purchase. Let's say average home is $300,000. Earnest money at 3%, that's $9K. And that's earnest money deposit, 3%, which is $9K. I hope my handwriting's fine here. Title, that's 1 to 2% on a $300,000 home on average. You are going to pay 1.5. The math is too complex there. Let's just say 1%. Keep it conservative. 300K, that's 3K. And basically, these are your flat expenses. And when it comes to repairs, renovations, other expenses, we're going to leave that for here, which is contracting. So to distinguish these sections, there's expenses, advertising, and contracting. These 3 sections are important to distinguish because the differences are pretty big. Now, this right here is going to be about $12,500. Okay, that's fine. Let's even round it down. Keep it conservative. $12,000 to even purchase a house or to do due diligence and actually move the process along. These are credit card expenses that you are in fact making, like for sure, because they are almost always done through credit cards. Sure, you can make a deposit through bank or debit, but there are going to be title companies that allow you to put $9,000 down with a credit card. Most of them will, especially if it's not rural and it's like a metro area. They're up to date with their work. Now, $12K there. Let's say in order to find that deal right there, you had to spend 5 grand in advertising. This is a reality. This is legit. Like, you will have to expect this if you're doing paid ads and you're not doing manual work. You just have ads running and you just find deals automatically. That's how that works. You have to spend 5K. And it's really not bad because the deal is going to net you 40, 50 at the end of the day. Or if you're not optimized with your system, let's say it nets you 10, 20 at the end of the day when you sell that deal. Let's just say 5K for advertising. Pretty simple. You're going to have to pay 1K. And these are really rough, okay? This is not the best case scenario. I'm keeping it conservative here. 1K to your marketer. So overall, you have 6K in advertising for one deal. This is every month. If you're doing one deal a month in real estate, whether it's a fix and flip, wholesale, whatever the strategy might be, one deal a month, this is what the expenses are going to look like. And then 12K plus 6K, we're at 18K so far per deal per month. Okay, these are flat costs. We make it back anyway because we're running a business. Now, contracting. This is where it gets juicy, you could say. When it comes to contracting, a lot of people will say, okay, get a Home Depot card. Okay, get a Lowe's card. Get all that. Nah. What you could do is, I believe PayPal has this option, and there's one more platform that has this option. I don't remember exactly which one, but I know PayPal does it. You can transfer money to people not as a cash advance, but as a legitimate cost expense purchase to your contractor, to your handyman with a credit card, paying them that way. You're basically setting up the processor for them. So labor on its own, you're going to be able to make cash back on that. You just have to get them to be like, yeah, I'll accept it through PayPal. Sure. Labor, check. How do we actually distinguish this here? Labor, check mark. We can make cash back 3% from labor, okay? That's sweet already. On a lot of deals, if it's like 200K you're buying it at, and you want to put 100 grand in repairs or a total reno, like 25 to 40% of that is going to be labor. I would say 25 because we want to keep it, conservative here again. And so with 25%, like, let's keep going with this example here. Sorry, not even 200K, because we purchased this house at 300, hypothetically, and we want to eventually aim to sell it at 450, and our cost is going to be obviously 100 grand in renovations. It's going to add 50K net by the end of it, and then we have to deduct this. So that's what the cost sheet looks like. Let's run that through. 300K is our purchase price. 100 is the total reno. So if we need to divide that, what does that look like? That looks like 75,000 in materials. Stay with me here. And then 25,000, in labor. Let's actually simplify that just so the math is a little easier. 70 grand in materials, 30 grand in labor. And then that's really it for your expenses. You're at 400,000 cost. And then with these two expenses, which is your regular expenses to buy, and then your advertising expenses, 12 and 6, that leaves you with 418. And then there's also costs to sell it again. Selling, which is going to be, you don't obviously need an inspection again. Title, that's going to be, if you're splitting it and it's not a deal, it's going to be a retail deal. It's not the investor taking it on. 1.5K again, just to sell it. There is also marketing expenses like, Fluffy MLS, realtor commissions, but those don't actually get paid out by card. That would be weird to pay out your realtor their commission with 3%. But we're going to leave that out. Maybe if you really wanted to hustle it out, you could get them to accept it by card. Same thing with the PayPal payouts, but really it's the title company paying out a realtor's commission. They're not even going to want you to pay them that way. So 1.5K to sell. Let's include that here. 1.5. Let's round it off to 420. Nice, right? 420 is your total all-in cost. And then obviously we're going to have to exclude the 300K because that's the purchase price of the house itself. This is not going to be something you're putting on a card. This is just a cash chat balance transfer. If this is, for example, a hypothetical cash fix and flip. Okay, so this is not going to be cash backed. So we have to do minus 300 again. And now our total expenses out of our credit card in 1 month have been 120,000. Now, if you look at this deal, okay, we will come back to this 120. Look at this deal here. 120, 420s are all in, okay? And how much did we get this house sold for? We're not even going to put in the realtor commission percentage here. If we did, it would be 420 times 3%. That's about 12.6. 12.6 thousand. Okay, let's just say it's 12 though. All right. So 436. There's so many expenses in real estate. You just can't keep track of all of them. 436. And now, what did you sell the house at? Let's just call this an average fix and flip, right? Like, if you want to do deals consistently, you don't want home runs every single month, which is unrealistic, especially if you don't have the right systems or a very dialed in process that's cutting edge, nothing like easy flips, then you're going to want to aim conservatively. And so these are the numbers, conservative. Remember, I'm using conservative numbers. If you deduct these, right? We're just going to write that out there. 436 and 450 as your exit. This is your in, this is your out. What do you end up with? You end up with about $14,000 net pre-tax. This is a business balance or business revenue, so it's pre-tax. And this is in a month, per month. So look, that's not bad, right? You're making, how much is that? That's $168,000 a month, right? Sorry, not a month. I'm all over the place. $168,000 per year equals sweet, right? Who wouldn't be happy with $168,000 every year? Now, let's go back. Let's assume we used our Robinhood Gold that gives us 3% back before, obviously, any taxes here, because we are going to deduct it at the end of the day. And we ran it through the entire 120K. So 120K with 3% back. How much is that? That's 3.6 thousand, okay? My brain's not that fast. I have to go to Google really quick to figure out these numbers, so excuse me. But it's 3.6K, all right? So instead of 14K profit, guess what? We made 17.6. Is that right? I would hate to be wrong here. No, that's right. So instead of 14, we made 17.6 thousand. Just because we used a card rather than debit, for example. This is the optimized card. This is the best card. We use Robinhood Gold. Okay? And obviously there's no limit. If you were using an Amex Blue on 120 grand, it's going to run out before you're even halfway through with your expenses. So really, let's look at this. And by the way, just to recap, right? 70,000, we get cash back on this because you're just buying materials. You go to Home Depot, you go to Lowe's, wherever it is, you buy the materials and you use your card. It's as simple as that, right? Obviously for handyman, if you want to get cash back on the labor, you got to do what I told you just now with the PayPal or the other platforms. There are platforms that allow it and they're specifically built for it. But you do that and then you go here. So look, at the end of the day with the numbers, 17.6 compared to 14K, what kind of difference is that? 17.6 divided by 14. That's a 25. That's almost 26% more profit. You just increased your profit margins by freaking 30% nearly just by using a card instead of a debit, right? And this is the best card I'm talking about. If you wanted to really look at the differences, okay, what if instead of that you just used a 2% cash back? Well, what would that look like? Well, in that case, if you're not using the best card, the difference is just going to look like, what's it going to look like exactly? It's going to look like 17% increase, okay? So instead of 26, you get 17%. But damn, we want 26, don't we? So everyone wants more money. Everyone wants to optimize. Obviously, you're going to get the best card to use. Why wouldn't you? There's no difference in the process. Now, over a year, 17.6 compared to 14, if you're making 168,000 every year, and instead you swap to a card, and now all your expenses on your expense heavy business, which is flipping houses, are put on the 3% card, you're now making $211K. So just think about that. I mean, need I say any more, right? Need I say any more? I just laid all the math out for you. I know I might have been all over the place. Go watch this again. 211,000 instead of 168. What's the difference on that? That's $43,000 you're making every year just by using the best card you can, and you knew how to use a personal expense card for your business. Golly, guys. I mean, that's really it. If this doesn't compel you enough to go like find your best card option, I don't know why you would want to be in business or why you're watching a video like this. But listen, Robinhood Gold just came out. Robinhood Platinum does a similar to basically the same thing on more limited expenses. So Platinum, that's 5 to 10% back on hotels and flights. We're not going to be spending 120 grand a month on hotels and flights unless you're like a mega baller, in which case you don't even need to be caring about what card you're using for your business. But with Robinhood Gold, the expenses are on everything. The cashback's on everything. It doesn't matter. Anything you put on the card, you get 3% back on. So it's really simple and it's really clean. And if you are able to get the Robinhood Gold or get on the wait list, I strongly suggest it. It is now the best card you could be on the market for. And that's really it. If you're a expense heavy business or even an expense heavy person, you want to put everything you can on that Robinhood Gold. I appreciate you guys watching this. This was lengthy, but this is good stuff, and you guys needed to understand exactly why and how it works so that now you can view expenses, business, banking, all from a new perspective. Appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you on the next hack video.